are going to do a slightly complicated motion graphics practice project. So pay heed, young kittens, so that you know what to do. I'm going to go over this in class, but it's good that I have this recording too, because you'll need it. So we're going to record, we're going to make what's called a tracer, and it's used in a lot of stuff. We're going to use it on a really basic abstract level, but it looks like this, where you basically have a clone moving around like we did with the undulating kind of fishy effect. It's the same setup as that, a cloner of a cube and a random effector, and then animating it just like we did with that, except we apply a tracer to it so it traces those motions. You can actually see their path. And then what we do with the tracer is we create a second clone, also an object clone of a cube, the same cube, and we use the tracer now as the object that it's going to clone along. So we're cloning a cube and animating it around, and we're going to use an object. I used the big giant cube to kind of define the space, and then we're going to apply a random effector to that clone. And remember, we animated it with the fishy effect with turbulence or noise, and so that's what's making the cube animate. Basically that. So it's just, the same project. We apply a tracer to that. The tracer takes the clone. You just drag the original clone into the tracer where it's asking what do you want to trace. And then there's a couple of settings here that we have to do for the tracer. And then, so now you have basically cubes animating around being traced. Whatever their motion is being traced, anyways. And then we create another clone of another cube, and this cloner is also an object clone, but we use the tracer as the object this time. And we apply a random deformer to that, or a random effector, and we get this cool effect. And there's a lot of different things that you create with this. Let me see if I have another one here I could show you really quickly. How about this one? Okay, so you can create this sort of locomotive type of motion by just limiting how you clone it and what direction the clone can go in. So let's get started on one. I'm basically going to just paste in that cube. And we're going to take this cube and we're going to clone it. Ta-da! So we clone it. We tell the cloner to be a object clone. And we need a big object to clone along. And something like a big ass cube will be sufficient. And so in the cloner where it's asking for what object, you just drag in the big cube. Now the big cube is going to be, actually let's make the big cube bigger. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more. Actually, I don't want to stretch it out too much on the Y, because then it tends to animate out of the visible area. You can't see it because it's way down here and up there. Anyways, let's take that, and to turn off the cube so it's not visible that we're using as the object clone, we just click on that dot right there, and then it's gone. And so then we go to our cloner and we tell it how many clones they have. Something around 60, 50 should be sufficient. And then we apply a random effector, through the cloner. So remember, you have your cloner selected when you go get the effector, and it will apply over here. But if it doesn't, you don't see it here, then just physically drag it in. On the random effector, we're going to go down and we're going to change the effectorness. We're going to go to where it says random and put it on noise, and I'll probably just kind of reduce it down to 20. We're also going to increase the frames of our movie, so this could go on for a while, and that's what it's buzzing around. Now under parameters is where we could tell it to move around more. So I'm going to say on the X, which is the red, left and right now, I'm going to say 5,000. And then on the Y, if you wanted it to just move left and right, then you just put none on the Y and it would move left and right. And if you put 0 on the other one, it'll only move one direction. Let's rewind. So now it only moves one direction on the X. And I do want it to move a little bit on the Y though. So, and I do want it to move on the Z. So we're gonna do that. So now it's like buzzing around. This is like bugs. You can even put on effector color and try like, you know, add and subtract and divide and see what it does. You see how they kind of buzz through, they change color. That's kind of neat. Anyhow, now that it's doing that, we want to trace this motion. So we go back to MoGraph and we create a tracer, and the tracer is going to ask like what to trace, and you want to not, it's going to try and trace the random effector, but you want it to trace the cloner, so you drag that in there instead. So before, like automatically, because my random effector, when you make the tracer, by the way, it'll trace whatever is selected. So when I made the tracer, it automatically did the random effector, which I don't really want. So I'm going to delete, I'm going to select the random effector right here under object on the tracer and delete it. And I'm going to drag in the original cloner. And so now it's tracing those motions, which is kind of cool. On the tracer, it'll endlessly trace those motions and create this crazy spider web. And so what you want to do is go down where it says limit and put it on from end, and then limit it to about like 25, 30, so that it doesn't have these endless, you can see how like these tails are kind of following it. It's kind of neat. Get all sort of snaky and slithery. So that's the amount, and then from end, that's on the tracer, okay? So now we've accomplished half the project. Now what do? Well, we'll copy that cube that we originally cloned, and we'll make a new cloner, drag that cube into it, and that new cloner is going to be, what type of cloner is going to be an object clone again. And this time the object though is going to be the tracer. Ta-da! And now you have the effect. And it's super dope, I think. And you see this a lot in all kinds of movies on a higher level where they add like programming to it and code to make it do special stuff. We're just kind of keeping it raw and abstract and simple so that we can get the basics of motion graphics. But it's a cool effect. Now, how can I make all those clones that are trailing after it, like little cars of a train or a people mover, how can I get them to change color? Well, I have a new cloner up there. I can go apply an effector to that, and we can just go apply a random effector to that and make sure that it's applying to the clone it is. And then see, there's a difference between it'll start naming the random 1, random 2, so that you don't get confused with which one is which. On that one, I'm not going to change position because I don't really want it to move, but I am going to go to color mode and just say effector color, and maybe, you know, tell it to be like divide or something. And so now it all like changes colors as it like moves around and animates. Let's pull out a little bit so you can see what we created. So it's pretty crazy, and it's a fun effect. All right, so there endeth the lesson, mortal children. And I will put this on YouTube, and this will be another one that you can, you know, that you'll have to do of all the motion graphic exercises what we've been doing one by one.